Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me. I hadn't set foot in that house in nearly a decade. Something told me I shouldn't go. My name is Walter. I'm 58 years old. I live in Bedford, Ohio, and last month, my dad passed away. He left me everything, his business assets, real estate, the works. Over $2 million, according to the lawyer. I didn't ask for it. I just got it. That's what the will said. The morning after his funeral, I was still in my robe, hadn't even poured my coffee yet, when I heard the knock. It was my older brother, Tom. He stood on my porch with that crooked politician's smile he's mastered over the years, like he was running for mayor, and I was the swing vote. Morning, he said, like it wasn't 7:30, and like we hadn't just buried our father less than 24 hours earlier. Morning, I replied, flat. He didn't wait for an invitation, just stepped inside like he owned the place. Look, he started, clapping his hands together like he was giving a pep talk. We all know Dad meant for this to go to the family. I just stared at him. Tom walked into my kitchen and looked around like he was checking for cameras. The will, that was a mistake, he said. It should have gone to all of us, split properly. I leaned against the fridge. You think Dad didn't know what he was doing? I think you should do the right thing, Tom said, stepping closer. Sign it over. We can divvy it up fairly. No, I said. And just like that, the fake smile disappeared. You sure about that? His voice dropped a little. Don't do something you'll regret. I didn't flinch. I've seen that look on him before. He used it on Dad when he was trying to get him to co-sign on a failed laundromat deal 10 years ago. It didn't work then either. He stood there for another minute like he was waiting for me to backpedal. I didn't. Eventually, he left with a huff and no goodbye. I figured that'd be the end of it. But then this morning, I got a message from my niece of all people. Family sit-down Sunday at Grandpa's place. Be there. Grandpa's place. That house hadn't had a full room since before Dad got sick. I wasn't sure what they wanted or why they thought I'd show up. But part of me already knew. When I pulled up, the place looked the same. But when I walked through the front door, I stopped in my tracks. Tom, his wife Dana, my cousins Eddie and Teresa, and two guys in expensive suits sitting on the couch. Welcome, Tom said. Let's talk. The will was clear. Too clear, honestly. To my son Walter, who stood by me, helped me grow my company, and never asked for a dime, I leave everything. That was it. No poetic language, no long justifications. Just one line, followed by legal confirmation that every asset, business, real estate, savings was now mine. Tom nearly knocked the lawyer's entire desk over trying to get a reread. You can't be serious, he barked, already red in the face. That's it? That's the whole will? The lawyer, a sharp, soft-spoken guy named Benjamin, calmly pushed the folder back in front of him. Mr. Matthews, your father's wishes were reviewed and notarized in accordance with state law. This is valid. Dana, Tom's wife, let out a dramatic gasp like she was in a soap opera. We sacrificed everything to be near him, she cried. I left my job, my community, my book club. I said nothing. The truth was, they hadn't visited Dad in months. The last time Tom stepped foot in that house was right before the pandemic, when he dropped by to ask Dad for a short-term loan. He didn't even go inside, just honked from the driveway like he was picking up takeout. Now, he was acting like he'd been there changing bedpans and cooking soup every night. I stayed seated as Dana started sniffling into a tissue she'd pulled from her purse. Tom paced like a caged animal. Benjamin glanced at me. That concludes the reading. You're free to make copies of the will if you'd like. Tom slammed his hand on the table. Oh, we'll be making copies, trust me. I pushed back my chair, stood, and walked out without a word. I didn't even get halfway to my truck before my phone buzzed. A message from Brian, Tom and Dana's son. My nephew. Wow. Greedy much? That one hit me harder than it should have. Brian was a good kid, or at least I thought he had been. We used to talk baseball at cookouts. I gave him his first job cleaning up at Dad's shop one summer. Guess that didn't count for much now. By the time I got home, my phone was lit up like a Christmas tree. Dana, we need to talk. This is wrong. Ty, hope you're happy. You always were Dad's little lapdog. You don't deserve any of it. He wasn't even close with you. Even Facebook wasn't safe. Tom posted a photo of him and Dad at a barbecue from 5 years ago, captioned, "Rip to a real one. Family first, always." The comments underneath were worse. That's disgusting. His brother just cut him out completely. Shame on some people. Money changes everything. Blood doesn't matter anymore, I guess. No one said my name, but I didn't have to be tagged. I knew who they were talking about. The narrative was clear. Walter got greedy. Walter took it all. Walter betrayed the family. It was a lie, but a familiar one. Tom had always been good at spinning things to his advantage. I didn't respond. Not yet. Instead, I poured a drink, sat at my desk, and opened Dad's old file cabinet. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe some kind of validation. Maybe just something to remind me I wasn't crazy for feeling the way I did. That's when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail. Then something told me to pick up. "Walt?" said the voice on the other end. "It's Eddie." Eddie, my cousin, the family black sheep turned financial planner. He lived 2 states away, and I hadn't heard from him in years. "I just wanted to say," he continued, voice low, "I saw the post. I heard what went down." I waited. "They're coming for it, Walt," he said. "They're not just mad, they're organizing. Meetings, lawyers, trying to find a loophole." I leaned back in my chair, the weight of it all settling on my shoulders. "Thanks for the heads up," I said. He paused. "Just be ready." If I thought the tantrum would pass after the will reading, I was dead wrong. It started with small stuff, weird calls to my office line. At first, I thought they were new clients. "Hi, I'm interested in a flooring estimate for a 4-car garage," but the numbers didn't match the area and the questions got oddly specific. Then my receptionist, Tina, buzzed in one morning and said, "You've had 3 messages today from a Dana Matthews. Says she's a potential investor." I felt my stomach drop. I told Tina to block the number. Dana hadn't suddenly taken an interest in home remodeling. She was trying to rattle me, make it look like I was unprofessional, maybe mess with my work reputation. I wouldn't put it past her. She once accused a waitress of ruining her birthday for putting lemon in her water. Then I got a message from a guy I used to know from high school. Hadn't talked to him in over 20 years. "Rick, hey man, weird question. Did you really swindle your dad out of his company?" I stared at the message, unsure whether to laugh or throw my phone out the window. Over the next couple days, more trickled in. People I barely knew asking loaded questions. Some just liked or reacted to Dana's cryptic Facebook posts. "Dana, not everyone who smiles at you is family, and truth hurts, legacy theft. When greed wins, family dies." That one had a photo attached, him, his sister, and Tom standing on the front porch of Dad's old house. The caption didn't mention me, but he tagged the house's location. Subtle as a hammer. I didn't respond. I didn't post anything. But every time I looked at my phone, my hands clenched a little tighter. So I did what I always do when life got loud. I turned to the files. Dad was old school. He kept every receipt, invoice, and IOU in folders labeled by year and category. I knew there were loans to Tom over the years, but I hadn't realized just how much, over $400,000. There were checks labeled Business Expansion Thomas, Personal Loan Remodel, and, my personal favorite, Emergency Rent Help, Do Not Tell Dana. All signed, all with Dad's handwriting. I scanned everything, every receipt, every transfer. Then I called Brent. Brent's an old friend of mine from the Rotary Club. He's also a sharp-as-hell lawyer with no patience for drama, which made him perfect for this. "I've got something for you," I said when I met him at his office. He flipped through the scans, nodding slowly. "These aren't just helpful," he said. "They're gold. Good. I've got a feeling I'll need them." He paused before closing the folder. "Walt," he said, more serious now, "I need to warn you. If they go the legal route, the play is going to be claiming undue influence. That you manipulated your father into cutting them out." I raised an eyebrow. "You're kidding." "Not at all," he said. "It's standard in inheritance disputes. Paint the inheritor as unstable, controlling, or isolating the deceased. Anything to open a challenge." I exhaled slowly. "Great." He tapped the folder. "The good news? These documents help disprove that, and if we get ahead of this, we can make it a lot harder for them to even file." That night, as I was sorting emails, my phone buzzed again. I expected another spam message or maybe a friend checking in, but no, it was from my ex-wife, Marlene. "Marlene, heads up, Tom called me." I froze. "He asked if you were," and I quote, "mentally stable enough to manage an estate of this size. Just thought you should know." I stared at the screen for a while, feeling the heat build behind my eyes. He called her? After everything? After 10 years divorced, no kids between us, barely on speaking terms, and that's who he reached out to, trying to plant seeds that I was unstable. I closed the message, sat in silence for a long while. Then I reached for the folder again, pulled out every financial record I'd scanned, and started organizing them into labeled tabs. If they were coming for me, they were going to have to do better than lies and hashtags. I was done playing defense. Let them try. Brian stood up. Not like his dad had, defensive and puffed up, but slowly, quietly, like the floor had dropped out beneath him and he wasn't sure what to do next. He looked at the papers I'd spread out, the ones with his name, his grad school fund, the Cancun receipts, the canceled checks. Uncle Walt. His voice cracked. I didn't know. Everyone turned toward him. Dana blinked like someone had just thrown a glass of water in her face. Tom narrowed his eyes, calculating. Brian glanced at his parents, then looked at me. I didn't know any of this. I thought Grandpa was just helping. He was, I said, steady. But help comes with boundaries. And when someone gives you everything and asks for nothing back, the least you can do is show up once in a while. He nodded, looking down at the floor. Then he stepped around the table and stood beside me. I'm not signing anything, he said. And if you're challenging the will, I'm not part of it. Brian, Dana said, voice shrill now, sit down. No, he said. Not this time. Tom looked like he wanted to shout, but didn't. Maybe he could feel the walls closing in. Maybe he was just smart enough to know when he'd lost the room. You have no idea what you're doing, he muttered. Brian turned to him. Yeah, I do. Then he looked at me again. Can I come with you? I stared at him for a second, trying to decide if this was another trick, another setup, but his eyes were red, his jaw tight. It wasn't performative. It was surrender. And maybe something else. Relief. Yeah, I said. Let's go. We left together, walked out of Dad's old house and into the gray afternoon. No one tried to stop us. Tom didn't say goodbye. Dana didn't even look at us. The advisors packed up their fancy folders like someone had pulled the plug on a presentation they didn't rehearse well enough. My truck was parked half a block away. Brian got in without a word. Tom's voice rang out when I started the engine. He stood at the edge of the porch now, red-faced and furious. You're dead to me, he yelled. Both of you. I put the truck in gear and pulled away. He screamed something else, but I didn't hear it. Didn't need to. The wind took it, like everything else he tried to steal. Back at my place, Brian sat on the couch while I fixed 2 coffees. He looked smaller than I remembered, like all the swagger and sarcasm had burned off, leaving just a kid who didn't know who to trust anymore. You don't have to stay, I told him. If you need time. No, he said. I can't go back there. I nodded. Okay. He stared at the mug I handed him. Can I help? With the business, I mean. I raised an eyebrow. You sure? I want to do something real, he said. Not fake startup stuff. Just whatever you need. I'll learn. All right, I said. You're starting with inventories. That's how I learned. He smiled. Deal. Over the next few weeks, he showed up early and stayed late. Learned fast, took to spreadsheets and vendor calls like he was trying to rebuild himself from the inside out. 2 weeks later, I drove past Tom's house on the way to a supplier. There was a for sale sign in the yard. Turns out he'd tried to refinance the property, using Dad's company name as collateral, illegally. And this time, there was no one left to bail him out. It was a Wednesday morning when I got the message. Carla, my sister. She'd been silent through all of it. Not a word at the funeral, not a text after the will reading, not even a like or a thinking of you when the family turned their social media into a smear campaign. For weeks, I assumed she was just on their side or too afraid to pick one. But now her message was short. Careful. Carla, can we meet? Just us. I'm done with all the schemes. I stared at it for a long time before replying. Me. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Java spot. The next morning, she was already there when I arrived. Nursing a mug of tea, her hands wrapped around it like it might blow away if she let go. She looked older than I remembered, not in a bad way, just worn in, like someone who'd been holding their breath too long. Hey, she said when I sat down. Thanks for coming. Sure. She didn't look me in the eye right away, just stared at her tea. I should have said something sooner. Yeah, I said. I didn't mean it to sting, but it did. She nodded. I didn't know what to say. Tom, he's loud, always has been, and Dana's worse when she's quiet than when she's yelling. I didn't say anything. Carla finally looked up. But you were right about all of it. I saw the receipts and I heard how Dad used to talk about you when no one else was around, how proud he was, how much he hated what Tom became. That one caught me off guard. I blinked. He wrote me a letter, I said, 6 months before he died. She smiled softly. He wrote me one too. We sat in silence for a few seconds. I want to help, she said finally, not because I feel guilty, because I'm tired. Tired of pretending like they didn't take advantage of him, of you, of all of us. What are you thinking? I asked. I've still got my bookkeeping certification, she said. I could do a few hours a week, just small stuff, payroll, filing, that kind of thing. I nodded slowly. We could use the help. She looked relieved, almost surprised. And I've been meaning to tell you something else, she added. You know that donation Dad made to Ellie's college fund last year? Your daughter? Yeah. I thought it came from a state grant, but when I went through his old files, it was from his personal account. He never told me. He just did it. That sounds like him, I said. Carla shook her head. I spent so long thinking I was the forgotten one, but I wasn't. I just didn't see what was right in front of me. We left the coffee shop an hour later. Not best friends, not suddenly healed, but connected again, two people who'd both lived in the same storm and finally decided to step out of it. The next week, Carla started coming by the office on Fridays. She worked through old vendor logs, straightened out payroll discrepancies Dad had let pile up. She didn't ask questions, she just got it done. One afternoon, while going through expense reports, she glanced up. Oh, did you hear? Dana moved out. I stopped mid-keystroke. Really? Yep, apparently, when the inheritance dried up, so did the romance. She took the BMW, left the rest. I shook my head. Figures. Carla grinned. Guess she didn't think in sickness and in lawsuits applied to her. We both laughed, genuinely this time. And for the first time in years, my family started feeling a little bit like one. About 3 months after the blow-up, the store hit a new rhythm. Brian had slipped into his role with an almost eerie smoothness, managing parts inventory, coordinating shipments, even getting on a first-name basis with the vendors Dad used to haggle with for sport. Carla stopped by twice a week, logging payroll and updating vendor sheets while sipping iced coffee like she'd been doing it her whole life. Things were working. One Thursday morning, I sat down with Brent, my lawyer, and a rep from a nonprofit Dad used to quietly support. It was a little organization that helped young tradesmen, guys fresh out of high school who didn't want college but didn't know where to start, get into small repair shop apprenticeships. I remember Dad writing checks to them every December. Never said much about it. Just, they're doing good work. Now I understood why. I want to start something, I told them. Something permanent, in Dad's name. We filed the paperwork that week. The Harold Matthews Foundation for Business Mentorship. We'd start small, just a fund for a couple scholarships, maybe a few paid internships. But the goal was bigger. We'd help train young mechanics and hand them the tools to run a shop, not just work in one. Dad didn't just fix cars, he built livelihoods. That's the legacy worth keeping. Brian jumped at the chance to help. He built the website from scratch, added an application portal, even made a short video tour of the shop. I caught him narrating it with this calm, confident tone, like he'd always belonged there. Maybe, in a way, he had. Carla handled the back end, budgeting, payroll for interns, filing the nonprofit's quarterly reports. She said it felt good to be part of something that wasn't just survival. I agreed. 2 months later, on the 40th anniversary of the shop, we held a small ceremony in the parking lot. Nothing fancy. Just a few folding chairs, a barbecue grill, and some old photos of Dad taped to foam boards near the entrance. I gave a short speech, didn't plan it, didn't read from notes, just talked about what it meant to keep something going, what it meant to take care of the things that take care of you, like Dad always said. Carla cried halfway through. I put a hand on her shoulder. Even Brian looked a little choked up. He'd be proud of you, he said afterward. Us, I corrected. He'd be proud of us. That night, I was locking up when I saw a white envelope sticking out of the shop's mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just my name in crooked block letters. I opened it inside, standing under the same fluorescent lights Dad always cursed for flickering. It was from Tom. The letter was short, no greeting, no sign-off. You win. I hope you're happy. No apology. No attempt at understanding. Just bitterness packed into 6 words. I stood there, reading it twice, then set it down on the workbench beside a wrench I hadn't moved in weeks. I wasn't angry. I wasn't surprised, and I sure as hell wasn't hurt. I was done. And I was ready. Brian enrolled in business school that fall. He picked the local state university so he could keep working weekends at the shop. Said it felt weird being away from the place too long, like the smell of motor oil and old paper invoices had gotten into his bones. We set up a trust through the foundation to cover his tuition. He tried to argue with me about it at first. "I can take out loans," he said. "I don't want special treatment." "This isn't special," I told him. "This is earned." He kept his head down and kept showing up, Monday through Friday in class, Saturdays running parts, Sundays balancing budgets. The kid had transformed, and not just in front of me. Vendors started calling him when things needed fixing. That meant something. Carla stuck to her Fridays. Every week, like clockwork, she'd show up around 10 with 2 coffees and a tote bag full of ledgers. She made jokes now, real ones. She even smiled while she worked. After closing, the 3 of us would sometimes grab dinner at Joe's Diner up the road. Nothing fancy, just burgers and coleslaw and that pie they pretend is homemade. We talked about Dad. Sometimes the funny stuff, like how he used to label every screwdriver as Phillips, whether it was or not. Sometimes the heavier things, too. I went home one night after one of those dinners and stood in front of the framed photo in the office, Dad and me, grinning in front of the first company truck. I pulled it down, opened the back, and slid in a new print behind the glass. This one had all 3 of us, me, Carla, and Brian, standing in front of the new Harold Matthews Foundation sign with arms around each other, smiling like we meant it. That weekend, we held the grand reopening of the shop, a fresh coat of paint, new signage, even a digital kiosk in the lobby for customers. I gave a short welcome speech, and somewhere in the back of the crowd, I saw my ex-wife. She waved. I walked over. "You did good," she said, touching my arm. "I'm proud of you." I nodded, surprised by how much that meant coming from her. The house feels different now. Warmer. The guest room is Brian's room. Carla comes by and scolds me for leaving the fridge empty like I'm the younger sibling. I even moved some of Dad's old plaques out of storage and back onto the walls. The place doesn't feel like a museum anymore. It feels like a home. A few nights ago, I went through one last box of Dad's papers. At the bottom, taped to the back of an old photo of the 2 of us, was a yellow sticky note in his scrawled handwriting. "Don't let them ruin you. You're stronger than you think." I smiled. "Yeah, Dad, I am. YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right."